This is IBM Museum. And I thought I had the topic of tonight's video all planned out. I was going to go through and take the Mall 60 that has the MFM controller off the bench and put up a different Mall 60 that is with an ESDI drive. And I pulled out the controller. I will have a video of that later on. I was have my batteries ready and everything else. I was going to go through and, I knew I had that reference diskette made up still that would run the system, and going through to check if the battery was good on that other unit. And I could go through and do like a hot swap on that as well. But I went through, and as I was digging up the controller boards to put back in there, put one of them back in there, prepare for that, I discovered a little bit more of a box, a cache that I had. And so I probably need to get the webcam turned off and get turned around, get on the camcorder, and just continue there from there for how I have things set up. Now, on a previous video, I'd gone through and I tested and marked. I'd received an MFM controller from someone. I went through and tested this out as being bad. And so I sent a replacement that we went through and tested here that I had as a spare. And the good news is I gave a comment update that I pinned on that video, but it got that system, that Mall 60 going. And that is absolutely fantastic. He didn't know whether it was the hard drive was also, going to give him problems or what the deal was. Now, I'd gone through and I'd cleaned one other adapter, and this is kind of gunky before, and I've got it pretty good, and I verified that it does operate. But I made the comment at that point that I only had one spare now. And I also made the comment that I didn't have the initial MFM controller either. That's a little bit different. It has goo on a chip, and just to protect it from the static from being damaged. And that chip was apparently very sensitive to that. And so I went through and kind of ended the video. I didn't have really what I thought was any spares or anything like that. And so the box that I had, and it has to be I can probably go through and raise it, but it says PS2 ESDI, and I've got SCSI lined out, and then DBA ESDI. And the DBA ESDI, I'll probably get into those at a later point once I cover the ESDI boards themselves, the controllers with the separate 5 1/4 very large drives. And I have cards and drives. Now, I don't have this marked as anything according to the MFM contents or anything like that. Although I kind of remember this box in a way. I just amazed when I got inside, because in there, I have to go on the right side here. So one of the things that caught my interest right off the bat was I do have, and I mean, it looks pretty worse for wear, kind of beat up. I don't know if this has ever been in service with some of the kind of, the one thing you get with the silver cap chips is that you get they dent easy, and you can have adapters that are scraped up and things like that. But this looks visually complete. I mean, I could go through and test this just to see if it would go through and work. But at least I know now that I have one of these, the initial MFM controller board, and just thought I had, that one as a spare that was working, and then I had the visually complete one that was bad. But, I'll stick this back in the anti-static bag. This might be something to test kind of at the end of this sequence. So on this side of the box, and let's make sure that there's no other, that's just anti-static bags that are empty. We can probably put them off the side and get the stuff maybe bagged up, the adapters I have, the known good adapters I have here. Start protecting them, because certainly I have enough anti-static bags. But even the cable sets. So there's another MFM controller. And the versioning on this for the microcontroller is all the same from what I've seen. They have that Y15 in there. I realize that my ring light, these adapters are a lot more shiny and give a lot of reflection on my ring light and other lights in the room. But there's the microcontroller, that 8051 AH from Intel. And then it's got a section that you can go through and program some microcode on those, all in the same microcontroller chip. There's not a separate ROM or anything like that. The ROM is integrated on the chip. And then these are identified by that 90X8643 FRU part number as being the later version. These cables, always kind of good to have around. They got the cable clamps and everything else. If I were to even go through and put a second drive onto a system, at least I know I have additional cables here. And so there's one. Let's leave the cables connected to it for now. Here's another one. And another one. This is dusty. I'll have to get out my brush. Just be careful not to really induce too much static. So we have 3. This looks like the front tab is missing the little bump that keeps it in place. But there's the 4th one. Yeah, and just keeping track. All these, we get the focus. And see there, it looks like the same. I think this equates to the same versioning as that other microcontroller I showed. But there it's just marked differently for the copyrights of Intel. And it says IBM program of 1987. But that 0649 that they have at the top, and that may be identifier for the chip, it's the same. And ultimately, there might be a way in software they'll have to figure out of identifying that microcode level. But there's adapter number 4. Adapter number 5. Adapter number 6. And you can see, I mean, the front tab's missing on some of these. I don't even think I've gone through. I don't know if when these were in service or when I got them, picked them up. But it's great that see, that's kind of got that marking, that Y15 marking again. So what did it say? 6, 7. This is another one with the cables. And 8. And so, and then I've even got more cables, even got some packed up cables and here, even screws for the drives, things like that. Oh, here's another cable pack. There's one of the tabs. So separate cables I could use for a second drive. More cables. Wow. So, and even you can see other cables, and this is I'll have to look at the ESDI because I think ultimately there is a difference in the twist of the 34-pin cable, but I'll have to see when I look at these cables, because I think I had them separated by kind of divided in the box here. Although the data cables are the same. And let me see for all that. This is kind of one on the ESDI side. Yeah, I think all the twist and everything else were the same. So these cables could work. And this is a different FRU part number. So 90X6759 and 90X6755. So I'll have to go through and determine on that. And at least I know or reasonably assured for the cables that are connected to the adapter still, that those go through and are appropriate for that adapter. And I'll get into the ESDI side of this box when that time frame comes with working with that other Model 60. And there's some different information for those, even though, as I say, the format looks very similar. And they've gone to separate microcode, and I think it's a 8032 microcontroller that's on there. And I have done versioning for that EEPROM, figured that stuff out. But we'll get into the aspects of the ESDI. But I do have additional MFM drive in the box in anti-static wrap. The ESDI drives I have here are, I don't have them bagged up for anti-static or anything else like that. And some of these, I mean, that's going to be the appropriate thing I'm going to have to do at some point, is to also check the drives. But I thought, this will be a little bit of a repeat, as it were, in a way, for the MFM controllers, going through and kind of just getting they don't look so dirty. It doesn't look like there's any foam that's hanging off them or anything else like that, but they are dusty. And I want to go through and kind of get the assembly line going. I have my lens brush here, and that's even dusty itself from doing these things. But I want to go through and work on that. And what I've done here, it's just slightly out of view, is I've put the Model 60 off the bench, just right at the front of the bench with open face on the side here, just lowered it down. So I still have access to changing out the MFM controller on these and going through, and I'll just go through and test from the same drive. This is the drive that I have it commented out, so it just goes through and boots to DOS. So if I know that the adapter boots to DOS, we're good in this case. So, and I should have some Post-it notes and a Sharpie to mark stuff here. I pulled that adapter, that bits of that foam, yicky foam. So let me see. And I even have IBM Post-it notes even here too. Oh, those are nice. So here I have the blue Post-it notes, IBM. And I'll just go ahead and mark this as the original. So it's even, I mean, I expect this is even going to be a longer video just for all that, for all the number of boards that we have to test here. And we're currently at 16 minutes, so that's fine. And in no particular order, this first one doesn't have a tab. I'm going to do, these look visually complete. And as I say, a lot of time, if they're not working, a lot of time it can be these crystals getting knocked around. And it's a good thing I looked, because that is missing the Y1 crystal. And looks like it just, the body of that crystal came off. So this one immediately is set aside. That's not going to work if it's missing a component here. Now we have one with the cables appropriately here. And it's the same thing, just got a little bit of dust. So this one, we're going to go through and we're going to just make sure, you know, that this looks visually complete. No components on the back. Well, very few components. Little surface mount capacitors and stuff like that. But this is at least visually complete. And it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge, I think, to load the adapter in this position. I may have to kind of decide. Yeah, so what I'm going to do, we went over the box. I'll set this stuff aside because I'm going to go through and I'm going to bring the MUL 6. I'm going to set down this box. We've pulled out all the adapters we're going to test. And I'm going to put the MUL 60 back up on the bench. So let's just get, probably there's not any reason to pause or anything like that. Okay. A little bit of floor space there. And here's the ESDI adapters I pulled out. We will have them off to the side. Those are the ones I had separate. I had outside the box, and that was the reason I beelined kind of for that area. And that's right up here on the other side of this backdrop is where I had those. I put them there from months ago, and then was surprised to see, oh yeah, I've got the box there too. And so let me get the keyboard kind of off to the side here. Looks like all my cables are relatively free. We're going to leave that, the original controller on top. And I'll go through and I won't necessarily obscure so much of my, it's good I had that camcorder sitting high initially too. And so we can resume. You can see I haven't even gone through and cleaned that goo out fully on this. Not that I would necessarily do that on camera, but it's something that I need to go through and do. Remember, cables together effectively. And I have everything still all connected otherwise, and have that fresh battery in there. So it should hold the configuration. And even though I've got the postcode reader and things like that we probably don't need to worry about at this point. But let's go through. In fact, I still have this on video capture. Okay, and let's get the internal webcam up. We will okay. Didn't see any hard drive warnings. I'm going to immediately do a post-it note for this one that we had without the Y1 crystal. So it is tagged there. And I mean, there's not really any more extensive tests that we could do necessarily for the controller aspect. I mean, it'd probably be good to do to leave it in operation for some time and things like that in a normal environment to make sure it's good. But we got booted to the drive. And so it is so everything to the drive is functional. And we're not, notice that I'm not with this on, of course, we're not bumping around or anything else. I would probably go to where I need to look into the park utility. In fact, that may be even on the reference diskette. And but remember, the diskette drive on this is bad. Okay, so we're going to say tested good. And we'll do a date. Okay. So we're going to mark that one. And we'll just get the assembly line going here. Now, again, we are looking over. Can probably go through and still switch sources and things like that as appropriate. Of course, I'm in the two places. There's a little bit of the phase, but we're looking to see, it looks pretty clean and looks like it is complete. That's got that Y1, and these always have kind of that Y1 crystal there like that. And I mean, that's reasonably clean. It's funny, for all the dirt, this thing is still so shiny. Doesn't have the front tab to that one. And that's the reason I put this up higher, is just that it's easier to work with the adapters to load them in. Okay. And again, sorry about the kind of the two places that the phase difference between those two views. Okay, and as that's booting, go through and we'll dust this one. And I won't do the switch again, but maybe I can go through to hold it to the camera. That'll be the next one up, and that looks visually complete as well. Has that Y1 crystal. So that'll be the next one, but we have booted up to our hard drive once again. Okay. So we'll go through, power it off. Let's get switched over. Okay. So this will be another tested good with a date. Okay. We have our next one up. I already went through and visually checked. And I've got my anesthetic bags in another location. I went through and moved them just yesterday, but I need to get some in here. And once I go through and test these adapters is good, I need to get them bagged up and actually get the bags marked too. Get them stored a little bit better too for all that. Okay, cables together. Okay, our next one up, we will go through and dust. And it is visually complete as well, has in particular that Y1 crystal. And so we're doing pretty good for everything being equal otherwise. And as I say, I just had these gathered together. I don't have any idea of when the last time that I had these adapters in service or where I got them or whether I even had, probably didn't even have them in use. And these came on both the Mall 60 and the Mall 80. And there's the 041 was a submodel for those. So I don't even have enough machines for the amount of adapters. Okay, and that adapter went in pretty good. Okay, we're going to mark that with the Post-it note. And this will be enough for people to memorize my directory listing, probably. Okay. Now, this one is a little bit more dusty than the others were. But it is also visually complete here. And we'll go through. Okay, we'll get through to preparing. This one looks pretty clean. Not too much dust on it. We'll get set up with that. Okay. No kind of error messages or anything else on boot up. I mean, we're initially looking, if it were to happen, we would get that like a 1790 error typically is a very common, or in any regard, 1700 something. And I'm even getting behind my post-it note. Yeah, it's a boring video. Just repetition. I've got the, the assembly line going here of just testing one board after another that are identical. So I don't have to change any of the other adapters or anything else like that. I've got the configuration saved away. And it's just a process of going through one by one. Okay. This one is visually complete, already checked. Okay, and we'll detach the cables of this one. Give it a dusting. And the Y1 on this is kind of tweaked off to the side, but both it's connected on both sides. So and just the boot process, I mean, that's a significant test in its own. and it may not be extremely comprehensive, but it works well enough in our case. Okay, so the last one of the later controller. And I've gone through to where I've run the swamp cooler in here recently. It's been warm enough, and the air at least holds the moisture now that I don't need to be as concerned for the static running around. It's not like winter, cold air that doesn't hold moisture, that static would be a lot more of an issue. Okay. So that one is good. So just as the last test here, looking for my post-it note. We're going to go through and pull this out of the anti-static bag I put it in. And just to look over, components are in different places, but it looks visually complete. I mean, I did hold that up to, and it's certainly shiny. It's got a dent in that one silver cap chip, but that's probably something not really to worry about. And this, of course, it's going to be the same 8051 microcontroller with that paper label on it, but it's going to be an earlier version of the microcode, of course, as well. And what I was seeing around was a Y12 identifier for probably a versioning compared to that Y15 of the later. It just has a different. Okay, that's why. These tabs on the back are splayed out a little bit more. So it was hanging up a little bit on the retaining screw. Yeah, it feels like it's in there. A little bit more solid. Cables together. And moment of truth. And hear a little bit of different drive access noises. And wow, okay. So even that initial MFM controller goes through and is working. So we've got the, I'll go through and I'll turn off. So we've got, yeah, that's complete. It's got the tab 1, 2, with the got the front tab as well. 3 has the front tab as well. 4. The way a lot of the time, that's with the front tab as well. With the front tab and the back tab, a lot of the way that I go through and I store them, I actually even have a file folder that's just the right height and width to hold these. You nestle 2 of the boards in there together. And I can probably stack them that same way. Just make the video longer, of course. Okay. So up to 4, 5 with the tab. And then that's missing the bump for the tab. Actually, there's a couple bumps missing on that. I can go through and repair. So ultimately, I'd have all the good ones. I've got tabs I can put on them, the front tab. And so there we have up to 6. Here's the 7th. Tested good. And we have our initial adapter, of course, that we figured out was not visually complete, has that missing Y1. Now, the thing is there, I could go through, of course, we have the way to go through and stack, I guess. There's our 8 working adapters. And I could go through even from this bad, and I could switch the crystal, or I could even get another crystal ordered just to go through and pull that Y1 off of there and put it on this other adapter and see if that goes through and works. And although as I say, a lot of time these crystals can be the component that as these get knocked around and things like that, that goes through and makes them bad. So we have ultimately 8 good MFM controllers here. We've got cables for a whole bunch of them too. Nice little hefty little stack. And we've got 2 as of this point that are bad. And I can go through and at some point I can switch that crystal and go through the same testing rig as well for that. But that is fantastic that we have Centipede and Lander. Looks like it's got some games there. Raisins Bat. Okay, get it back on the screen this way. And I'll go through and I'll probably get a picture from my thumbnail and things like that. And for length, we It's just coming up on about 45 minutes, so good enough video in this case. So if you, I understand this is boring. I mean, I just went through and repeated a process over, effectively 8 times for the, well, 7 times for the good adapters. And we saw that one that was visually incomplete. But if you enjoyed the video, click on the like button and certainly subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already, and recommend it to your friends that might be interested in this sort of content too. But just a little bit further of MFM controller testing, those microchannel adapters, and we'll get moved on to the ESDI. I'll have to decide when I go through and test that MFM drive as well. And that might be something to do before I take this off the bench. Maybe I can repair that adapter and check the drive in another video, and have even set up a 2-drive system to kind of show what there might be to that. But that's all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.